You'll kick yourself tomorrow. You're always missing opportunities doing this. Also, you can get your music while you're up. She opened her eyes and discovered she could see quite a lot, considering there was no moonlight. She slipped her hand into a side pocket on her rucksack and pulled out her phone and earbuds. Earpods could be lost easily. Earbuds dangled when they came loose. She unzipped the tent, fully intending to stay inside, but the sight of the night sky bewitched her. She clambered outside, debated whether to bring out the stool or simply stand and gape. She chose to stand. Celestial eiderdown was hardly enough to describe what she saw. It was hypnotic. She wanted to stare, and by staring, release something of herself and allow it to be pulled gently upwards into that spray of icy pinpricks. Maybe the way a stage magician pulls a string of handkerchiefs from a hat. After perhaps 5 minutes, she activated her phone and plugged her headphones in. 4:15? Really? You couldn't just let me sleep 2 hours till daylight? She took a deep breath, held it, and released it slowly to dissipate her frustration. Don't fret over what you can't change or control. Just drink in the beauty above you. She opened her MP3 folder, placed the buds into her ears. It seemed that she needed Enya to underpin this. A cathedral of sound for a cathedral sky of stars. So, that's why those churches are like that, she thought, to make you think of heaven. No, not to think, to feel it, to want to merge with it, to be absorbed into it. She lay back on the shingle and stared. The discomfort of the stones faded. Music reverberated in her head, and the sky seemed to soak into her. After a while, she became aware that she was defocusing, that her mind was wandering, no longer paying attention to the sky. Enya was working her other magic, relaxing her to a meditative state. Soon she would be drowsy, and falling asleep in the open air was probably not such a good idea. If there were foxes around, what other wildlife might there be? Perhaps of the slithery, legless kind. She sat up, pulled the earbuds out, held them between thumb and forefinger, and took a last look at the sky. She contemplated taking a photo with her phone and dismissed the idea because sky shots never did justice to what you could actually see. From the lake came the sound of a bubble popping on the surface of the water. She brought her phone to life and tapped Enya into silence, got back inside her tent, zipped it, slipped into her sleeping bag. She did not have long to wait. She felt herself slip, and as she did so, a sound very similar to Enya seemed to grow closer, as if female choir singing unaccompanied by instruments were approaching. It grew closer and closer, slowly louder, stopping when it was just the right volume to comfort and soothe. It relaxed her like a lullaby, but complex, in that there were several voices singing long, floating notes in harmony, swelling and receding, the voices soft, as if they were trying to caress away her cares and any inner bruises, any concerns that might prevent her from slipping into deep, deep relaxation and sleepy dreamfulness. The dream itself was odd in so many ways. For one thing, she was aware that she had begun to dream. Normally, realizing this pulled her slightly back into a semi-alert state, to her exasperation. Not this time, though. It was as if her mind were an observer and nothing more. The second odd thing was the dream itself, its nature. The part acting as outside observer also noted that what was playing out in this little scenario was remarkably literal. It knew that dreams were based loosely on experience, so rain would fall at exactly the same speed as in waking life, not faster or slower, but other things might be weird. You'd turn to the right and entire buildings would disappear behind you, and you'd now be watching a bus drive away. Not any old bus with another one along in a few minutes. No, it was the last bus, and you really needed to be on it to get home, or you'd have to start walking. There was no continuity. The third odd thing was the singing. It had become almost solid, like a cocoon, tighter than the sleeping bag, snug, warm, delicious, safe. And then she was looking at her own body as it rose slowly like a conjurer's stage show, floating as ethereally as the voices in the song, bobbing up and down gently like a leaf on the surface of a lake. So everything was grounded in the present moment. Her levitating body in her hiking clothes, exactly as she had been minutes ago while awake, half rotating off her side so that she was lying face up now, hair responding to gravity, the sleeping bag slipping off her as if it were a cloth sliding from a table to the floor. The zipper on the tent inching upwards, the flaps opening as though an invisible pair of hands were holding them apart. The singing becoming the tiniest of fractions louder. Her still sleeping body limp as a corpse, easing out like a starship in a sci-fi movie leaving dock and venturing out into space prior to heading off on some adventure. So what is going on here? The dream observer asked. Are we going to fly up into that night sky? And with that, the observer was outside the tent too, eyes at the same level as sleeping Jen, waiting for that sudden upward surge in the direction of the stars. She continued to ease toward the water. Her jeans unfastened, as did, one by one, the buttons on her shirt. Socks peeled themselves from her feet and floated back inside the tent. Her jeans slid off her legs like the sleeping bag before them, and her shirt slipped away from her shoulders, down her arms, and followed her jeans back inside the tent like items on a conveyor belt. The observer Jen watched the tent flaps fall. Sleeping Jen floated past the water's edge and over the lake. The singing grew warmer, more comforting, as if saying that everything was going to be okay. Her body lowered, and the dream observer's point of view abruptly changed to one hovering inches over the water. Without waking up, floating Jen descended and dipped into the lake. At first she lay stiff, as though the gravity-defying energy still carried her, and then she gave a little start. Handed over to the water, the dream observer noted. Jen's hands broke the surface and moved as if trying to row herself out into the middle of the lake. Her legs, too, made tiny, graceful movements. Not flying to the stars, then? Swimming beneath them. Shouldn't my eyes be open, no? Why aren't there any noises? Because this is a dream. You're dreaming like the ones when you fly or are trying to escape but you're waist deep in water. The swimming motion continued for several seconds, then stopped. Eyes still closed, Jen's legs lowered below the surface. Her arms spread sideways and performed circular motions. We're trying to stand upright in the water. Won't the lake floor be all sharp stones and gravel, dig into the soles of our feet? Maybe even jagged rocks we'll smash our toenails on, and the blood will attract predator fish.